It's been a whole 11 years since the last mainline installment in the Devil May Cry franchise, and now in 2019 we finally have a brand new title to hack and slash our way through. 11 years is a long time, and with the landscape of video games changing so rapidly every year, the main questions one might ask are, does Devil May Cry 5 do enough to modernize the series, and does it also retain the aspects that made it so great to begin with? Devil May Cry 5 is by all intents and purposes an action-adventure hack and slash game. You'll progress through fairly linear levels, solving simplistic puzzles, all while tearing through hordes of enemies. A great emphasis is put on performing combos as a means to gain currency and grow your characters stronger. The narrative is just about what one might expect from a game in this genre as well, with its moments of climactic intensity and overall epic scale. The focus is set on our three main protagonists, being Dante, Nero, and V, and the events are set in motion when an underworld tree known as the Qliphoth appears on Earth at the command of a demon king known as Urizen. Dante, with the assistance of Nero and V, head out to defeat him, but it is found that Urizen is ultimately too powerful. Dante goes missing upon being bested by the demon, and Nero and V reluctantly retreat. The timeline then jumps ahead by a month as Nero sets out to claim revenge and find Dante. From here, the story mainly deals with V's motivations as a character and how all three protagonists tie into Urizen. Most of the events that happen here actually take place on the same day, being June 15th, but the game manages to feel larger than it actually is thanks to the playable characters and times of day swapping back and forth every chapter. I enjoyed this interesting approach to the storytelling, and it made it feel kind of like a puzzle slowly being pieced together. The stakes are very high, but there is always an underlying sense of witty sarcasm and levity made evident by the cast spouting out clever one-liners even in times of dire consequences. And moments like Nico, the mechanic's sidekick barreling through buildings, just adds to the playful charm on display. The plot wasn't groundbreaking by any means, but what was there was told in a way that I found clever, and it kept me engaged enough to always be wondering what would happen in the next chapter. Upon finishing a chapter, players will receive a grade based on how efficiently they performed combos in battle. The grades range from dismal all the way to smokin' sexy style. Yeah, you heard me right. And the higher the grade you receive, the more red orbs you obtain, which is the game's main currency. These orbs aren't only obtained in combat though, as you'll also be collecting them while traversing the levels. They can be traded in to enhance character skills, buy items, and upgrade your weapons. I strongly recommend taking some time to get to know each character's moves and button layouts, because the devil is truly in the detail. Learning 3 separate character movesets can be overwhelming, and I'm not typically a huge hack and slash guy. But when I took a bit of time to study their combos and commit a few to memory, my performance in the game increased greatly and ultimately made my experience a better one. After all, the combat in Devil May Cry 5 is the key point here and truly the best feature of the game. The controls do take a bit to get used to, and I definitely think that some of the button choices are odd ones, but once you grasp them, it won't be long before you start effortlessly stringing out combos. And it's thanks to the 3 varied and unique fighters at your disposal that make the combat system so addictive. Nero is missing an arm thanks to Urizen, and therefore uses a special prosthetic made by Nico with swappable arms known as Devil Breakers. These arms have different properties, ranging from electricity, flurrying whips, and even rocket-propelled fists. They add a certain outrageous quality to the combat and feel really overpowered in the most glorious way possible. You can't manually swap between these, but Nero has the ability to detonate his current equipped arm on command, automatically switching to the next one when doing so. Picking up an arm in the level will also immediately equip said arm. This is either a huge inconvenience or a clever mechanic depending on how you look at it. Yes, you won't be able to have the specific arm you want at all times, but it creates a sense of surprise when you're going into a fight, and it forces you to get by with what you have. There is potential for strategizing though, as you can load multiple magazines with a set of Devil Breakers before combat. Other than that, he has guns to use and a special sword that can be charged up like a motorbike for extra damage. I thought Nero was a very well-rounded fighter, and I enjoyed using him the most during my playtime. V is the weakest of the trio at first glance, but upon further inspection he actually feels the strongest. At his aid are 3 pet demons, Shadow, Griffin, and Nightmare. Shadow is a panther that performs melee attacks, while Griffin the bird uses long-range and AoE attacks. And when overwhelmed by enemies, the golem Nightmare is extremely effective at quickly wiping out everything in sight. These 3 demons can be used on their own or all at once, and when done properly, it overwhelms the enemies, barely giving them room to breathe. I felt like V offered a very different approach to fighting when compared to Nero and Dante. And speak of the devil, the final character that you'll be granted access to is Dante. He plays more similar to Nero with some big exceptions. He has access to the largest variety of weapons here with multiple close and long range types that can be switched out on the fly. And adding more flavor to Dante's move pool are 4 styles that offer him perks. These include Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard. Trickster will offer him short bursts of speed for a more evasive approach to combat, while Royal Guard gives him more defensive capabilities. Swordmaster and Gunslinger will allow for an increase of power to those respective weapons, with some powerful moves being available to use. And then of course he has access to his Devil Trigger, which powers him up to demon form and allows for healing as well. The combat system is the absolute best part of Devil May Cry 5, but unfortunately there was something to be desired from the level design. There were far too many times where I found myself trudging through tight corridors that felt cluttered thanks to a very awkward camera system. And whenever platforming was involved, it was very easy to get frustrated. Simple tasks such as landing on platforms suddenly became difficult due to the character's jumps being so hard to maneuver. The puzzle solving was simplistic to the point of being mind-numbing and made level progression feel like a chore. On a positive note though, the level design redeems itself ever so slightly when it comes to the secret missions scattered around. These are notated by hidden pentagrams that will grant the player access to difficult side missions when found. The reward for completing them is extra health in the form of blue orbs, and I appreciated their presence as it allowed for greater incentive to explore otherwise dull levels. Throughout the campaign, you'll mainly be exploring industrial areas bogged down with demonic growth, or actual segments of the Qliphoth. These areas are quite similar, and after a while it all starts to repetitively blend together. Don't get me wrong though, the levels look absolutely stunning, but it's the design choices that feel flawed. The game runs in the RE engine, which the recent Resident Evil titles also ran on, and it is very apparent. Character models look extremely realistic with expressive facial animations and fine strands of hair visible. I was particularly drawn to the lighting effects as they always stood out and added a vibrant pop to the environment. The true-to-life texture work also had me constantly stopping to stare and admire. And keeping on par with the brilliant presentation was the soundtrack. I didn't know what to expect from this game's music going into it, but to say I was pleasantly surprised would be an understatement. The first few notes you'll hear are symphonic keys and strings, but this is not an accurate foreshadowing at all, because it's not long until you'll be hearing soft jazz remixes, techno pop, dubstep, hardcore death metal, and even country? Yeah, this game really ticks all the boxes in the music category. Devil May Cry 5 is by no means a perfect game. The level design feels dull, some of the platforming controls are very off, and the story, while exciting, didn't actually accomplish a ton. It could be argued though that all of these points are irrelevant, because at its core, the game is a hack and slasher. I'd be lying if I said it didn't do a great job at that. The controls are fluid, the combat is addictive, and there is a ton of variety offered in terms of characters and fighting styles. Not to mention, it does all this while immersing the player in a presentation that is equal parts hyper-realistic graphics and varied, exciting music. So, to answer my original questions posed at the beginning of this review, Devil May Cry 5 not only shows us a fresh, modernized look at the series, but I would argue it does an even better job at keeping in touch with its roots. And no, I do not mean the Qliphoth. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like or subscribe to the channel. And what did you guys think about Devil May Cry 5? Leave a comment down below and I would love to chat about it. Until the next video, you guys have a great one and I will see you then. Bye.